God's chosen ones. Missing this prophetic day will cost you everything. July 26 to 28. Your life is becoming a reflection of divine purpose, a holy triumph revealed through you. God's chosen ones. If you are ready to step into this sacred calling, type 777 or 444 in the comments. Let it be your covenant, your bold yes to heaven's perfect timing. You've been waking up at the same hour 3. And sit it. You can't explain why you wrote down July 26th in your journal 2 months ago, before you ever heard this word. The numbers keep following you. 4x4 on receipts. Seen in Pacific dreams. Strangers speaking things that echo your spirit. And deep down you know it. Something is shifting in heaven. Something is circling back to you. These aren't just dates on a calendar. They're gates. And if you miss this divine alignment, you may miss the assignment attached to it. I don't know who this is for, but I can't stop watching the sky. You're 43. You live in Georgia. You've stopped telling people how tired you are because they wouldn't understand. Lately, you've been sensing it, not in loud way, but in that holy, bone-deep silence before something breaks wide open. It started with a number 3, chosenones. Every night, without fail, eyes open. No dream, just a pressure in your chest, like God's breath resting there. Then July 26th, over and over, a whisper, a journal entry, a TikTok that wouldn't stop replaying. You thought it was coincidence until your phone rang, and the timestamp was 4. Set to part. Until your niece said something in her sleep that gave you chills. You've been quietly waiting for permission to believe what your spirit already knows. That these next 3 days hold something sacred, something that won't come around again. Not another church service, not another motivational post. A divine crossing, a holy test, a gate in time. You feel behind in life, like your healing came too late. But heaven doesn't count time the way man does. For such a time as this, the Spirit whispered that to you last night, didn't it? And now here you are watching this. This is not your imagination. This is not a coincidence. This is a summons. You've been asking, God, when will it be my time? And God has been answering, when you're ready to recognize the time I marked for you. These 3 days, July 26th, 27th, 28th, they are not just days. They are destiny thresholds, where alignment meets obedience, where your past doesn't get a say anymore, where the silent season breaks, not with noise, but with direction. So before we go any further, take a breath, because what's coming next will confirm what you couldn't explain for the last 5 years. If you're still watching this, it's not by accident. The Spirit gave you the dates first. It started with a receipt. She didn't think much of it at first, just an old, crumpled grocery slip tucked into her purse, but scribbled in her own handwriting. Nearly faded now, were 3 numbers that made her throat go dry. July 26th, July 27th, July 28th. She didn't remember writing it, didn't remember why. Later that night, she opened her journal, the old leather one with the broken spine and the ink-stained pages, and there it was again. A single line from 6 months ago. Don't miss the end of July. No explanation, no context, just that. And suddenly, her heart wasn't beating the same anymore. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Something had been pulling at her for weeks now, waking her up at 3. With no reason, no noise, and just that quiet weight in the air, the kind you feel right before a thunderstorm breaks open the sky. She thought she was imagining things, until the numbers started following her. 4/4 on the microwave, 7/7 on a receipt, a stranger's license plate that made her freeze in traffic. 20 outsgod. She laughed it off the first time, but the second time made her cry, because deep down she knew this wasn't random. Heaven was whispering in patterns now. She remembered the dream. 3 gates, 3 dates carved into stone. She stood before them barefoot, trembling, and didn't move. When she woke up, she wept, not because it was frightening, but because she felt like she missed something she was born to walk through. Now, sitting in the dim light of her kitchen at 3:00 in the morning, holding that same receipt, she could feel it again, the stillness before a shift. She whispered out loud, "God, are you marking time?" There was no voice in return, but her spirit stirred as if heaven had just nodded. Because the thing is, she had always been early to love people who weren't ready, early to dreams that took 10 years to bloom, early to callings no one around her could understand. But this was different. This wasn't a calling to speak. It was a calling to notice. And the signs were everywhere. Her lease ended on July 28th, a job offer that ghosted her months ago. They emailed again. "Can you be available for a second interview?" July 27th. It wasn't coincidence. It was confirmation. But confirmation doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes it just comes with a sense, like the kind you get when you're standing on holy ground and your shoes suddenly feel too loud, like you're being watched not by men, but by eternity. She didn't need a prophet to tell her. She didn't need another sermon. She just needed to pay attention. Because she finally understood. The Spirit always gives the date before the door, before the breakthrough. There's restlessness before the shift, silence before the release, a test you don't even know you're taking. And God, He doesn't shout it. He marks it quietly in your journal, in your dreams, in the parts of your heart still waiting to be noticed. She took a deep breath, looked at the calendar, circled those 3 dates in red, not as deadlines, but as divine intersections. She didn't know what was coming, but this time she wouldn't miss it, because this time she knew they weren't just dates, they were gates, and her name was already written on the other side. Divine disruption always comes dressed in delay. The hardest part wasn't the waiting. It was not knowing what she was waiting for. She'd been stuck in that strange space, not backward, not forward, just hovering. Her phone hadn't rung in weeks. Doors that once stood open without effort were now bolted tight. People she thought were permanent had fallen silent like autumn leaves letting go of the branch. And still, no explanation, no reason, no scandal. Just slow vanishing. Every plan felt paused. Every prayer returned with a soft silence. She kept saying to herself, "This is just a season." But this season had lasted long enough to make her question if she'd missed something, or worse, failed something. That's when the whisper came, not out loud, but somewhere just beneath her ribs. This isn't punishment. This is positioning. She almost didn't believe it, because how do you explain divine purpose when your bank account is on life support? Your inbox is empty, and the people you gave everything to don't even notice you've gone quiet. How do you trust a plan you can't even feel? And yet, every time she knelt down to pray, nothing came. But every time she stayed there, peace did. One night, she sat on her living room floor, surrounded by boxes. She wasn't moving, not physically. She just couldn't stand seeing the same 4 walls that had witnessed her confusion for the last 9 months. She packed them anyway, for no reason, for no destination, just obedience. And that's when it hit her. Delay is the disguise God wears when He's trying to see if you'll trust Him without results. The next morning, she walked past a gas station, and the total on the pump flashed $44. $44. She froze, not because of the number, but because of what she felt in that moment. Stillness. The kind that only happens when heaven leans in. There's something sacred about delay. It doesn't just test your patience, it reveals your posture. Anyone can believe when things are moving, but can you stay tender when everything stops? Can you bless what hasn't come yet? Can you trust God's calendar more than your own urgency? She sat in the back pew of a church that Sunday, arms crossed, heart cautious, and the preacher didn't speak her name. didn't call her out, didn't give her a word. But he said this: sometimes God slows you down so the blessing doesn't arrive before your character does. And suddenly, it made sense. The delay wasn't denial. It was protection. It was alignment. It was sacred interruption. She went home, pulled out her journal, and wrote, "If I had moved any sooner, I would have taken the wrong people with me." That line broke something inside her. Not in a painful way, but in the way a shell finally cracks to let the flower bloom. Because God hadn't forgotten her. He was just saving her from being seen too soon, from being loved in fragments, from building something holy with people who didn't even believe in holy things. Delay was the mercy she never prayed for, and now she was beginning to see it. Maybe the closed doors were really guardrails. Maybe the silence wasn't rejection. Maybe it was recalibration. Maybe nothing moved because she was being rooted. She wasn't just being told to wait. She was being trusted to, and that trust, that silence, that stretch of stillness, that was the most divine disruption of all.
Because when God finally moves,
it'll look sudden to everyone else, but not to you. You'll recognize it because you remember what it felt like to stand still on purpose. The hidden exam you didn't know you were taking. It didn't come with a warning. There was no email from heaven that said, "This week we'll test your character." No angel showed up at her bedside with a study guide. But the test had already started. It began the moment her prayers stopped feeling answered and started feeling echoed. It began the moment she chose peace and lost people. It began the moment she obeyed without applause. No one saw it. Not her coworkers, not her friends, not even the people she was praying for. But God saw it, and heaven began taking notes. The test wasn't public. It was private. It wasn't about skill. It was about surrender. Could she keep loving when the room grew cold? Could she stay loyal without being seen? Could she trust without a visible reward? She didn't know it yet. But every day for the past month, her life had become a spiritual classroom. And the test, it wasn't written in ink, it was written in choices. The way she responded to that rude message without clapping back. The way she gave when she barely had. The way she whispered thank you into a dark room where nothing felt holy. All of it counted. The test was in the silence, in the places where obedience felt like loss, in the hallway between her prayer and God's promise, in the pause between her worship and His whisper. No results, no prophetic dream, just her. And the choice to keep showing up. She thought she was being overlooked, but the truth was, she was being examined. And not because God didn't know her heart, but because He was about to promote her, and heaven needed to show the evidence. Because elevation always comes with a record, and records are built in secret. That's what most people don't understand. God doesn't test to punish. He tests to prove, and she passed long before she ever realized she was even being watched. She passed when she forgave quietly, when she cried but didn't curse, when she stayed faithful with no spotlight, no confirmation, no thank you. She passed when she chose to be kind, when her heart felt broken, when she kept worshiping while waiting, when she stopped trying to manipulate the outcome, and just let God be God. Heaven doesn't grade like earth does. Earth waits for performance. Heaven watches for posture. And her posture, it was surrendered, shaky, but surrendered. Not perfect, but positioned. That Tuesday afternoon, she almost snapped. She was exhausted mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Another bill came in, another door closed, another message left unread, and just as she was about to spiral, something in her spirit whispered, "This is the last page of the exam. Answer with trust." She put the phone down, took a deep breath, and instead of panicking, she worshiped. No music, no lights, just her and her tired hallelujah. That's when heaven stamped the grade. Approved. Not because she aced it, but because she didn't quit. She didn't cheat. She didn't take shortcuts. She didn't abandon what God told her to do just because the results took too long. She passed in silence. And when it was over, she didn't even realize it, because it never felt like a test, it just felt like life. But the next day, something shifted. A call she didn't expect, an opportunity she didn't apply for, a door that wasn't supposed to open for people like her swinging wide. She cried, not because of the breakthrough, but because she finally realized God wasn't testing my strength, He was trusting it. Some people fail because they demand clarity. Others pass because they give consistency. She chose the second one, and because of that, she woke up into a new chapter. Not just blessed, but proven. You were chosen for the midnight shift. It happened again. The clock said 3. Not 3:30. Not 3:35. Exactly 3:33. Her eyes flew open, not from a nightmare, not from noise, just presence. She laid there in silence, chest rising, heart awake in a way her body wasn't. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was a pull. Something was in the room, but not a someone. Not flesh. Not sound. It was assignment. She didn't tell anyone. She'd done that once, told someone she was waking up in the middle of the night with a weight in her spirit. They laughed it off. Probably stress. They said, no, this wasn't stress. This was summoning. It felt like God was clocking her in. She swung her feet over the bed, knees to hardwood floor. No script, no music, no preacher to guide her. Just breath and surrender. Lord, I'm here. That was it. That was the prayer. He didn't thunder back, but something holy began to stir in the room, like oil warming in a pan. There's a sacred thing that happens when God wakes you before the world does. It's not a punishment. It's not insomnia. It's invitation. An invitation to watch with Him. Because midnight isn't the middle of the night in the spirit. It's the beginning of movement. And that's why He wakes His chosen ones. Not to inform them, but to assign them. She felt it. A name in her spirit. A face she hadn't seen in years. She prayed for them, not because she wanted to, but because it felt like heaven needed her mouth to move so someone else could breathe. It was deeper than intercession. It was partnership. A deep stillness returned, not silence, peace. She climbed back into bed, and before her head hit the pillow, a verse dropped into her chest like a stone in still water. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Psalm 126. Fainto. She smiled, because that wasn't a random verse. That was a prophecy. The next day, her phone buzzed. A message from someone she hadn't spoken to in years. I don't know why, but around 3 a.m. I felt peace for the first time in months. Did you pray for me? She stared at the screen. I think God used you, they said. She didn't reply for a while, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she realized she'd just been on the midnight shift. You see, people think being chosen means being celebrated. But most of the time, it means being assigned at odd hours, while others sleep. The chosen stir. While others dream, the chosen intercede. You don't choose the shift. It chooses you. And if you're reading this, you know what it feels like to be summoned when nothing makes sense. To be told, pray now. To carry names you don't understand. To feel a burden that isn't yours. To weep for someone you'll never meet. That's not weakness. That's anointing. And make no mistake, God doesn't call everyone to the midnight shift. Only the ones who are sensitive enough to hear Him whisper, but strong enough to carry what He doesn't say. She didn't need proof. She had obedience. And obedience is louder than clarity in the courts of heaven. That night, she made a decision. She stopped fighting the alarm her spirit had set. She began keeping a notepad by her bed. She started waking up with expectation, not exhaustion. Because now she knew those 3 moments weren't interruptions. They were intimacy. She was chosen, not for the spotlight, but for the hour nobody sees, the midnight hour, the watchman's post, the place where breakthroughs are born, in secret. And when heaven scans the earth for who to awaken next, it always returns to the heart that says, "Here I am, Lord, I'm up." The gates were hidden in time. The morning of July 28th felt still, too still. No lightning bolt, no trumpet, just a sky that looked like any other soft blue. A few scattered clouds, birds singing the same song they always had. But something beneath her ribs was humming. It wasn't anxiety, it was activation. She brewed her coffee, sat by the window, and as the sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, she whispered, "Lord, I feel it, but nothing looks different." No reply, no sudden breakthrough, just the warmth of morning and the weight of wonder. She almost dismissed it, almost let the day pass like any other. But something in her wouldn't allow it. She reached for her journal, the one she'd been writing in since the strange dreams began. As she flipped back, a page stopped her, dated exactly 2 years ago. "One day, I'll be tested with time. I pray I don't fail by being impatient." She froze. Tears, not loud, just that kind that rise slow, unannounced, holy. Because in that moment, she knew this was the gate. It hadn't come with fanfare. It hadn't shouted. It had waited to see if she'd still be faithful after the prophecy felt old. Waited to see if she'd still be standing after her hope had been stretched thin. And she was weary, yes, but still believing. And belief is what opens the gate. Suddenly, everything made sense. The delay, the dreams, the numbers, the silence, the warfare, the loss. It was all the hallway, not the end. The hallway to a gate hidden in time. Not a gate of escape, but a gate of entrance. That's what no one talks about. Some gates are loud. Some gates swing open in front of crowds. But the most sacred ones, they open in secret, when only heaven is watching. She stood up, walked outside, and just breathed. Not because the gate was physical, but because her alignment was. She was no longer waiting for confirmation. She was the confirmation. She hadn't missed her moment. She had become it. That day, a call came. Not a miracle, just a step, a door slightly ajar, an offer that looked small but felt weighty. And instead of asking, "My God, is this really you?" she whispered, "God, thank you for teaching me how to walk through doors without needing signs on them." Because now she understood. The signs weren't the destination. They were the preparation. She used to think God would shake the sky. But what he really wanted was her posture, to see if she'd move without the miracle, to see if she'd obey before the outcome, to see if she'd trust the whisper more than the whirlwind. And she had, not perfectly, but faithfully. She had passed the hidden test, and the gate, that invisible gate, opened inside her. "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" Isaiah 43:19. She did now. She perceived it. And though nothing looked different outside, everything had changed within. She'd crossed over, from fear to faith, from striving to surrender, from waiting to walking in it. This is how it happens for God's chosen ones. Not with explosions, but with alignment. Not by force, but by trust. And if you're still reading this, still watching, still wondering if you're late, you're not. You are right on time. Because the gate was never about the date. It was about your readiness. You didn't miss it. You were meant for it. She sat in the quiet. No music playing. No alerts. No noise. Just her heartbeat and the hush that follows heaven. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel late. She didn't feel overlooked. She didn't feel behind. She felt home. Because the truth had finally risen to the surface. She was never waiting on God. God was waiting on her alignment. Beloved, let me ask you something quietly. When did you stop believing the timing was holy? When did you start thinking you had to prove you were chosen? You've been so busy surviving. You forgot you were called before the battle ever began. The pain, the silence, the isolation, they weren't punishments. They were preparation. God didn't skip you. He preserved you. For this, for now. Those dates, July 26th, they weren't magical. They were mirrors. They showed you who you've become. Someone who can pray without proof. Someone who can obey without attention. Someone who can stay planted even when the rain is late. And now, the rain is coming. The season you thought you lost is returning with interest. Because you didn't quit when it got quiet. You didn't curse what God called holy. You didn't leave the altar. You became one. You, beloved, were not overlooked. You were set apart. You are my chosen one. I hid you in time. But now, I reveal you in purpose. What took others 10 years will take you 10 days. Because you passed the test no one saw. And I am the God who rewards in the open what was forged in the quiet. So breathe again, not in fear, but in expectation. Your shift has already begun. Your door is already open. Your name is being spoken in rooms you've never entered, because heaven moves at the speed of obedience. And you, chosen one, obeyed. Thank you, God's chosen one, for staying to the end of this sacred moment. This wasn't by chance, it was heaven's timing. If this prayer stirred your spirit, let it take root. Speak a life. Walk boldly. Trust fully. Before you go, declare your agreement in the comments. I receive my restoration. I walk in God's perfect timing. Let this be your yes on earth and in heaven. Until next time, stay in the sacred flow. You are loved. You are seen. And your new beginning starts now. Amen. Comment sim 7 in if this was your sign. Let heaven see your agreement. Let the gates know you are ready, because now you are walking in it.